This is a podcast from Rover.
Hi, I'm Dayna, a former TV presenter and radio host. But to Luca and Darcy, I'm known as... Mom! Maybe one day they'll realise I used to be cool. Being a mum has been my greatest joy and biggest headache. It's taken me to playgroups and parent gatherings, mainly for cake and coffee, but also to meet parents and swap stories, which reminded me I'm not alone and the things we face are normal. And that's what this podcast, Parents We've Met, is all about.
I don't know how it happened, but I was carrying both under each arm, and in each hand I had a poo. People were like, hey, aren't you the guy from... I was like, oh, yeah, please don't come near me.
I don't think we're meant to do this parent gig alone, and I knew I needed a bit of a coach to help me along the way. And that's where Jenny comes in.
I'm here for you, Dayna.
You got my back. I read Jenny's book, KFC, which at first I thought was going to be a mean recipe, but instead I found what I was really needing. I needed to know how to be kind, firm and calm. Yes, another serving of that, thanks Jenny.
Every parent has their own story and their own struggles, so join us as we chat through the magic and mess of this parenting gig.
Ka pai, Jenny. Welcome to Parents We've Met. Now, this episode is pretty special because we had the pleasure of sitting on the couch with Josh Thomson. Now, if you don't know him, Josh is a New Zealand comedian, actor, director, producer, and presenter. And at the same time as cracking jokes and playing all sorts of vast and varied characters on screen, Josh is doing the tough but wonderful job of parenting alongside his awesome wife, Liz. Like so many people we know, their journey to becoming parents wasn't all smooth sailing. And we're really grateful to Josh for sharing openly about their journey with infertility and loss, as well as his own journey with grieving his mum. And we hope that by creating space for these conversations, we can encourage others who are going through similar stuff. Now, this conversation took all sorts of twists and turns, and there were heaps of laughs along the way. And a bit of a disclaimer, there are a few poo stories. But as parents, we all have them. Malololele, Josh, thanks for saying yes and hanging on the couch.
Malololele, you're most welcome.
You actually thought it was just going to be you, me, in a garage, so this is probably very different.
This is much more professional, but it's very comfy.
Hey, you recently toured your new comedy show, Horrible Man, and I checked the write-up, and it says... Come and witness Josh deliver his views on hygiene, garden implements, email addresses, and the surprising growths on his body. Now, I have so many questions, Josh, but also I'm scared to ask them.
Yeah, you should be, because there's a reason why it's called Horrible Man.
What are your views on personal hygiene?
I'm all for it. Yeah, it's pretty handy. Although I will say after having kids, I was pretty grossed out by any sort of poo. I mean, apart from animals, that's fine. And probably my own. But after having kids, your poo tolerance goes through the roof. After a few years, there was one point, I remember there was one point I took both kids into a mall and I was like, my wife was like, yeah, it's kind of around lunchtime. You might want to get them home for a nap. And I'm like, it's all right, mate. Daddy's got it. And so I took them in and both of them pooed themselves at the same time and I didn't have the pram. So I think at one point, I don't know how it happened. Oh, we didn't have nappies either. I forgot to take the nappies with me. So I was in the parent room and I don't know how it happened, but I was carrying both under each arm and in each hand I had a poo. I was like, got to get them back to the car. I was going to put them in the car with the poo and trying to avoid people. And people were like, going, hey, aren't you the guy from... I was like, hey, yeah, please don't come near me. But we made it out of there. Yeah, the poo got to the right place.
I'm surprised in my everyday conversations how much me and my kids talk about poo.
Yeah.
Just, and even when, teaching your kids how to wipe, I don't know if you did this, but I got the peanut butter and put it on the plate.
Did you?
Yeah, and you show them how to wipe. One of my children
yes.
Was a bit nervous about wiping their bottom.
Yeah.
And so we just had this, how this is how you roll up the toilet paper and let's get peanut butter and put it on a plate and practice wiping it off.
I see.
Because it's it shows them that not one wipe's always going to work.
Did you use chunky?
Smooth.
Or smooth, yeah. I would use chunky myself.
Yeah. Chunky, I think it's crunchy.
Crunchy. What am I talking about?
That chunky peanut butter. Jenny, you got a poo story?
Yeah, I do. This is back in the day when one of our children was in cloth nappies, because that's all we had back then. And we were in a lovely shop in Newmarket, and he was at the stage where he's possibly a little constipated. So a few of them rolled out, a few of the poos rolled out, and I sort of saw them rolling down this sort of slope. And all I could do was think, it's a hot summer's day too. I think grab them and act like you haven't got poo in your hand. And so I did. And then I sort of walked out of the shop and thought I need a bin. It was very hard to find a bin in Newmarket. Hot summer's day with rolled up poos in my hand.
Great.
It was unpleasant.
Yeah. Where do they end up going?
I think down a drain.
You guys have got more in common than I thought. You both had hands full of poo. Well, there you go. What did your days look like before there were four of you? I mean, maybe less poo sort of in your day, but who was Josh back then, pre-husband, dad, and, spotlight jokes dude?
I mean, I guess I was just an actor and a comedian. I did a lot of editing back then some directing, and a freelancer, so there's a lot of work, a lot of partying, and it was very fun, and it still is. It's just different now.
So, Josh, has your comedy style kind of changed since having kids?
No, I think it's the same. I've just got more material. I think I'm more sensitive to representing parental values, maybe. I think I did a show recently where I talk about how people always ask you when you get together, are you trying to have children? And I always make a point. It's not like a gag, but I always make a point that it's not really anyone's business. And then I go into the jokes. And every time I say that, there's always been like a couple of whoops from the crowd because it isn't anyone's business. Like, I mean, I get it. Like, people want to know if you're going to have kids, but it can be really tough. And there's a lot of infertility and stuff like that. People could be on a horrific journey you might not know anything about. And so there's stuff like that, which is very different, which I would not have cared about before. But I kind of like doing that sort of stuff now.
Everyone's journey to becoming a parent is very different. And I know that you've shared really openly on the project and in other media about yours and Liz's journey.
We were trying for like 2 years, and I think we had 2 or 3 miscarriages along the way. And when I say we, I really mean my wife. It didn't affect me physically, but for her, it was just quite tough because they were early ones. Like, we weren't too far into either term at all. And, I've heard other people's stories who have, much rougher, carrying it to full term and that sort of thing. But it was sad. For me personally, it was like, well, not meant to be. It's obviously not working inside. So it's a natural thing and it's not worked. But for my wife, it's, she's got to go through the physical trauma. One time I was at an airport and we were traveling somewhere for holiday as well. So like it was, it's just a lot to deal with. We talked about it a lot and afterwards we sort of came to deal with it. But it was a tough emotional journey for her especially. Also for me because I was trying to be as supportive as I can. You feel really helpless. But it's just horrific watching someone that you love go through that. I think talking about it may have helped other people talk about it, but I feel very fraudulent because for us it was something that happened. It was very rough, but we're okay, and we ended up having some wonderful kids, so it's kind of like all right. Our trauma is nowhere near as deep or as rough as anyone else's, but that's the other thing with miscarriages is like any trauma is trauma, and other people experience it in different ways, and what happened to us has happened to other people and they've had a much bigger reaction, which is totally justified as well. Like, it's a tough subject, and the more you talk about it, it gets slightly easier eventually, and eventually it's kind of okay. So I would recommend yapping about it. And all those times that your friends go, oh, you're okay, like, that's the time to lay it on. Cash in those points that you've earned over the years, because it does help.
Yeah, we really appreciate you just opening that up, Josh, because, I think many parents just don't know how important it is to talk and to have somebody that they can, in an ongoing way, that they can keep chatting to.
Because the other thing about the miscarriage as well, because it's like a secret, because you haven't told anyone, you may not have told anyone about the pregnancy, then you have this thing, you're very excited about it, and then it goes away, and then like, you can't tell everybody because you can only tell each other. And I remember bringing it up at work at the project, because I talked about it on the project, and I think there were like 9 other dudes who went through the same thing with their partners, and we were all roughly all at the same time, and we had no idea that anyone was going through it. It was just like quite shocking. It's much more common than you think. And it can help someone, even if you don't feel like you need to talk about it, it can help other people. So I definitely would encourage it.
That's some really good advice, Josh. Can you give us a snapshot of what your family looks like now in this season?
I have a daughter who has just turned 5, and I have a son who has just turned 3. Yeah. And they will both tell you that every time you meet them.
Has she started school?
No, we're ducking off to Australia for a few months, so we're going to wait until we come back, and we're in no rush to get her into school. She's like incredibly intelligent and brilliant and adept. I also kind of want her to have as much play as she can in her life before she gets institutionalized like the rest of us.
What's it like in the Thomson home? I mean, we know who's there now, but you walk in, what's the atmosphere like? What?
There's a lot of stuff on the floor. Yes. They're both very outspoken, and they may be shy for about 30 seconds, but generally they'll be yelling at you, wanting to do a play for you, tell you jokes, run around, dance for you. The boy is going through a phase now where he wants to show how strong he is. So he'll just be lifting up things, yelling at how strong he is. I don't know where he got all this stuff from, but he wants to fight stuff all the time. But like he'll be like, "Daddy, it's raining. Let's go and kick the rain." It's like, what do you mean? He's like, "Kick the rain." So come on, okay, let's go kick the rain. So we go outside and kick the rain, which is harder than you think. But he loves it. So that's sometimes we go and kick the rain. He's got a lot of hard boy energy, like breaking stuff, jumping on things. Whereas my daughter also did that at that age as well, but she'd give you a slight warning before she jumped at you. So my son will just randomly jump off the sofa and you've got to try to catch him. We used to play a game called Daddy Bridge. So that's the other thing. So like they both prefer my wife to me. Generally. And which is fine. That's okay. I know that parental preference or whatever it's called is a thing. She spends most of the time with him and, is mum. So I will take anything. Like if they're climbing on me or crawling on me and that's good enough, I'll be like, yes, this hurts, but they're kind of touching me, which is technically affection. So like, I'm taking it. And one thing I used to do was Daddy Bridge, so I'd lie between both of their beds. They were in the same room and they would run across my back, but then they started jumping across my back. And then one of their little heels landed on one of my ribs and I think it displaced it. Oh. So I kind of I thought it was a broken rib, but it was like some sort of displaced vertebrae or something. Yeah. So we're not playing Daddy Bridge for a little bit. But yeah, worth it.
Josh, it sounds like that bridge might need a bit of maintenance, but I really love how warm and connected you are to your kids. There's lots of physical affection. And in coaching, we talk quite a bit about parenting styles, and it gives us a chance to reflect on how we were raised when we have kids ourselves.
Dad is an engineer, but we grew up on a farm. So like he'd go to work, and he was of the land, so he loved hunting and fishing. But he definitely, the more I think about it, the more he loved, like we'd go camping we kind of go, like Mum didn't really like the camping that much, so we go tramping with Dad, we go hunting with Dad, fishing. He loved all those activities, and us, my brothers loved all that stuff as well. I wasn't so big on the hunting myself, and so there was a lot of great outdoor mucking around, but it was all and he's quite logical as well. I think a lot of that has come down to me, which I realise doesn't necessarily give you the right results. So there'd be a lot of, well, if you do this, then this is the result. But I was sort of too young, I think, to process really. I don't have that world experience that he has to. But I don't bear it against him. It was I understand it was from his point of view, it was very fair and it was very balanced and it was very loving and caring and a lot of time spent with us, and that is, we're very lucky to have that sort of thing. So Dad is Palangi, Mum is Tongan. We grew up in the South Island. There wasn't really any other Tongans where we grew up. We really didn't care. We were very fiercely proud of it and fiercely proud of our mum. Mum was incredible. Mum has passed away about 10 years ago and was incredibly loving. I get very sad when I think about her not being around for my kids. Watching her with my brother's kids was always really beautiful. She just turned up. She's everything you want in a grandmother, or a mother when you've got kids. She's like, kick the door down, have bunches of groceries, tell Dad to put them in the fridge, then just run up and scoop up the kids and just be cuddle, just like full noise, everything that they wanted take the kids off your hands. Whereas like dad like turns up, oh, has anyone got the kettle on? It's like, oh, cool. Oh, God. We have a larger, older toddler in the house that we have to feed it. But yeah, also very loving as well. But like, it's just a different, like she's very, not overwhelming, but there's a lot of love.
Sounds beautifully supportive and loving.
Yeah,
Josh.
It was really. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah. You raised an interesting thing about logic, because I think parents often rely on that children will think the way that they think, and that we will try and teach them things, but we forget that when they're little, particularly, it takes a long time for them to access logic.
Yeah.
They've actually got big feelings before they've got logic.
Yeah. You know, that anytime with my kids when I'm like, oh, I've got to put your pants on now, they're like, no. I'm like, okay, just like, for me to go, if we don't put your pants on, we can't go to the playground. I mean, it makes perfect sense, but they don't care. Like, they don't know logic yet. They haven't had 40-something years of figuring out stuff. Like, they're 3. I can't argue logic into them. And it's so hard to remember, and I don't do it a lot. Like, I've really got to think about it, because it's my fault, really, for not starting earlier. It's my fault for not allowing enough time to try to find a way to turn it into a game or something. For me to be results-orientated is setting a far too high a bar on my children. Like, he's 3. He doesn't know. If he wants to play I can't get his pants on game, it's a great game, really. Like, I'm going to chase him around. Like, the whole day he wants me to chase him around, and I'm, doing other stuff, and I can't. And finally he gets to have me chase him around. Like, why wouldn't he want to play that the whole day? It's unrealistic expectations from me. But still, it's really annoying. Like, on the other hand, it's really annoying. If we don't go to the playground now, he's not going to run around. He's not going to go to sleep at lunchtime. I've stuffed the whole day. Like, I mean, it compounds the other way as well. It's just, I've just got to, I've got to be easy on myself and realise that I've made a boo-boo. Yeah.
Yeah.
You just both go out without pants on, just embrace it.
Yeah. It's in a perfect world.
But accessing your childhood feelings is a really good way to lean into your kids and to soften when you are totally frustrated with their lack of ability to even speed up a little bit. Right. But also mentioning that so often we don't leave enough time for their speed or to be playful. We forget that children need quite a lot of scaffolding to get from A to B.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying this stuff now. It still drives me out the wall. I've got not like. There's another thing that helps me as well. Like, when I get really frustrated, I imagine there's other people around. Because like at a party, I'm the greatest dad in the world. I'm so calm, and people go, "Oh, you're so calm, and you're so calm. You're handling so well." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's fine. I'm a great dad." But like when we were alone, I'm like, "Come on, mate, get your pants on. We're not going unless you get your pants on," which is awful. So like. One thing that's every now and then, if I'm frustrated, I go, oh, just imagine there's other people here. There's another thing I saw as well, which has helped me when I'm really grumpy as well, is to imagine that I'm really old. I'm in the future and I'm living in a house probably by myself and there's no kids running around. And I'm looking back at and remembering the time that I'm at now, and I'm wasting it by being angry. Sometimes it's like, well, do we have to be at the playground at 3:00? Do we? Do we have to get to the birthday party at 11 a.m? Who cares, really? Which is why, as you know, I'm constantly late to everything now because...
Do I need to be there?
Yeah.
When you mentioned about your mum and just being gutted that the kids, aren't experiencing that, my heart twinged because I lost my dad 2 years ago. And I find myself on the daily just looking at my kids and having a laugh and going... I wish he was here to see this. Yeah. And I imagine that he is here and he has seen it, but I want him to be here in the flesh and be a part of it. And I'm sure you find that on the daily too. How do you intentionally keep your mum's memory and all that she is alive for your kids and share that part of her with them?
Well, we talk about her a lot. It was how we dealt with the subject of death and loss, and I've had to, I think probably more for me, I've had a few chats to them about it to help me deal with it, which is very selfish, but like it was I think it's good for them to see their dad cry and be sad and realise what loss and what grief is. And And so I would just talk through it. I'd like, because we get to play with Nana. How come we? They'll be like, "Oh, is Grandma dead?" And I go, "Yep, she's dead." And they ask how it happened, and I'll tell an okay version. My mother had a stroke and and passed away, and so I'll just honestly talk about it because I think it's really important. And over the years, they've gotten better at understanding it, and sort of just as kids do, just kind of accept it. So it's kind of, I think it's good for them to be honest about it, and I think it's good for me to keep her memory alive. One of them has the same name as my mum. One of them's called Sawana. And so for a long time, just saying her name was quite weird for me. And seeing my daughter's name in print, like on a passport or, whatever, on seeing a letter, it would freak me out and throw me. But it's fine. We keep her memory alive, and any time, we'll tell stories about mum, because my mother was a pastry chef and was an incredible cook. And one thing that we do a lot, and is that I make crepes for them in the morning. Not all the time, but a lot. And that was something that my mum would do. Me and the boys would hear, you'd smell the butter being fried. Usually would take a long time to get up, and then would realise that mum was making crepes, and then would all freak out and try to run, get there first. And be very sad if there wasn't any lemons. We have to try to figure out, we can use oranges, and because we put lemon and brown sugar, it's an incredible thing so I always make that. I often make that for my kids, and they really love it. Yeah,
it's interesting because my daughter doesn't remember a lot about my dad because she was very young, but it's amazing just watching how kids process grief as well. So my boy used to he would make these amazing Duplo creations of the funeral and that would be hard for me to see, but it was his way of processing, and it would be good because then we'd talk about it. But my daughter, and she still does it in these random moments, she'll just turn to me and go, "Your dad's dead." And it's like, whoa, okay. And it's just they bring it up whenever they want to talk about it, and there's no sort of PC way of doing things with kids, which I love.
Yeah, I love it too. And they'll talk about us dying as well quite freely. And which I think is good as well. I think for them to understand it or grow, learn it from us in a safe environment is the best way to do it.
It sounds like there's lots of little conversations because it's not a one conversation, and you start sort of small, and then they ask questions, and then at very random times they want to know how you're going to get somewhere, or are you going to die tomorrow, or and I find, like you said, Josh, we are often being healed as we are chatting to them about something really hard as well.
I love that you took your dad's emails and you created an award-winning web series from it, and it all began because your mum had passed, and you guys wanted to keep an eye on your dad, so he had to email you on the daily.
Yes. And
I was thinking, not only is it comedy gold, but it probably was a really great project for your family at that time to heal and to be together.
That's right. We grew up on a farm in the South Island. Mum was a big matriarchal figure, and then suddenly Dad was by himself, and Dad was, 15 years older than Mum. We all kind of thought it would be the other way around. So it all kind of caught us off guard, and just because Mum would kind of hound Dad to just hygiene and clean clothes, just normal human stuff that Dad doesn't do. So we realised that aside from his wife not being there anymore, just normal daily stuff is probably not going to get done anymore. So one thing was you email us every day, put your sunscreen on, put your hearing aids in, email us every day, and just make sure that you've done that, and then we'll find out. And so over the weeks and months, the emails became more and more insane. Not sort of, he's just a civil engineer, so you talk about the rainfall, the mills for how much rain and what effect that's having on the ryegrass, but the other grass is not doing so well. There's probably a lot of moisture content in the ground. Also, he found one of the neighbour's cats stuck in a car, and then you'll go to talk about some sandwiches he had for lunch. So then we're what was happening with this cat? And then like turns out the cat's dead. So he'd kind of bury like tiny nuggets of stuff in all the emails. So it was very, very funny for us, but also like hugely like, I think just for me personally, dealing with grief was to transfer it on to looking after someone. And so looking after Dad was our main concern, and that made us all pitch in. And I think it was a really great thing. I don't know if it would work for everybody, but it certainly worked for our family. Yeah. And then going back and making the series, like going and filming with Dad, was like really fun as well. Yeah.
And you guys have become like you're getting jobs together now, and he's become a bit of an actor himself, sort of.
Actor's a broad word, but like he's really great, and we are doing some things together, and that's always fun. Particularly funny for me. I find anything that Dad does is very funny, and to be able to share it with people is a great thing. Yeah.
One thing we ask all our guests is where they find the mess and where they find the magic. Not necessarily physical mess, but just the hard stuff in their parenting. Where do you, Josh, find the mess and the magic?
The mess is everywhere. It's hard to explain, but there's been a lot of times when I think either of them is being really deliberately disobedient, I guess is the word, and not helpful. And then what I figure out is that they're actually trying to help the other one out. So one of them was one of them didn't want to put on pants. Let's say that this happens.
It's a normal thing in your home.
One of them didn't want to put on pants and just really started crying. And then I was like, well, at least the other one's ready to go. And then the other one had taken off their shoes. And I was like, no, what's happening? And then I figured out the one who had taken off their shoes was using it to put little toys in and coming up to the other one and making like a little funny dance. Oh. So she was trying to make the other one feel better. And I was like, I'm such an awful person for me not to try to get in the way. That's like really amazing for them to look after each other in moments of like stress. It's like really beautiful. And I once saw. Don't know why well, we were in Australia, and my daughter has similar hair to me, not quite as sort of bushy, but pretty long and curly. And this, she was about 4, and this little boy ran up and yanked her hair, and they were standing on like a rope bridge, and she looked at him and she was so distraught, and I thought, I don't know how to deal with this. And she turned and she looked at him, and she did this sort of the sunlight was behind her, so she was kind of like in silhouette. She did like this sort of punch, not a punch, but she did like an open-handed push, and it was just this incredible. She went and pushed him away, at the same time saying, "I'm in charge of my body," and like pushed him and he sort of fell back a bit and then ran off the rope bridge and started crying to his mum. And it was the greatest day of my life.
Your kids are a similar age to mine, and I don't like the thought of them ever leaving home. But follow me here, Josh. One day your kids will be leaving home and have their backpacks full with all the lessons you've taught them, the values you've instilled in them. Thinking of them both, what is your big dream for them?
They're both really incredible. They're both very forthright at the moment. It might change. So I don't really have... I think they will go and get what they want. I just want them to be safe and happy, really, yeah. And I know I'm trying to get... This is why the other thing, I like to think when I'm struggling with them, that I'm old. Because even now, like, they're too big for me, really, to feel their little... You know, when you pick up a little human and you put them against you, it's like they're all snuggly, and they're already, like, the 5-year-old's getting pretty heavy. And the 3-year-old it's pretty annoying to hold them for longer than 20 minutes. So like I'm already grieving for them to be going. But yeah, I'm not prepared for it. I'm going to try to make the most of it until it happens. And good luck on them getting away from me.
We haven't talked about this, but I love that Jenny's someone that I've known for a few years, and I used to do coaching before I started Parenting Place. Is there anything at home, like this is your free moment now, you don't have to pay Jenny, this is a free question that you could throw in if you wanted. Yeah. Anything you're struggling with at home that you just think, Jenny, give me something here? Jenny,
you might not have picked this up, but I sometimes have problem putting on pants. My child. I'm fine. Yeah, the leg's going, right? But so my daughter is 5 and she's pretty good. Like I've still pretty much got to dress a bit, she doesn't sort of struggle. Whereas the boy will, who's 3, it can kind of work if I kind of seamlessly, if we're in a good moment, play-wise, I can kind of just seamlessly, it's time to get dressed, and then kind of, as long as there's something else happening. But if I approach him, and I always forget, as I'm walking towards him with pants or clothes, I'm like, okay, we've got to get dressed now. He's like, no, and then just runs around the house. And it's, can he dress?
Well, you already kind of answered it, Josh. I think the playfulness is probably one of your biggest sort of circuit breakers for the child. And then, just going under the radar is really important, like not sort of saying we're going to do this or we just have to. Even that language of we're going to stop and now we're going to. For some children, just sort of alerts their, we call it counter will, like you want it, I don't. So you can just say, it's trouser time, and that's less offensive than we're going to put your trousers on now.
Yeah, okay.
And so, stuff like that. And sometimes kids just really love, you have a book about getting dressed. If it was a big hassle, you'd have photos there'd be funny photos, and you just say, let's look at that book again.
Yeah, okay.
And while he's engaged in the book, you're pulling the pants on.
Yeah. Okay. Trouser time. I like it.
Stop. Trouser time.
So you don't say stop. So you just have to go trouser time, which doesn't have the same ring.
No.
But still pretty good. And I think one thing we went through earlier and it kind of went away, but I think it's still sticking around, is that my daughter, who's 5, I guess it's older child syndrome. I don't know what it is, but when the boy arrived, it suddenly wasn't all about her, and so we gave him a lot of attention, but then we knew that we were giving him a lot of attention, so we kind of doubled down and gave her more attention, and then so now she kind of needs a lot more from us while he just sort of runs around screaming, doing his own thing, which seems to be fine, but I think adds up, and I think eventually we realise that he actually needs a lot more from us than we give him, because we're giving more to her because we feel guilty that we can't give more to her.
Yeah, I think it's a big thing parents face, that they feel like, oh, look, we've got to be equal here. And children have different needs. So sometimes a child will take more oxygen. And I think one of the things we say to parents when there's a new baby is you don't actually have to kind of win the older child's heart over towards the baby by softening all the kind of the boundaries and the limits. You actually want to keep them in place because it makes the child feel safe.
Yeah, right.
So rather than sort of begging them to get on, I think we can set those beautiful limits where we understand that they're struggling with something, but maybe we are attending to the baby. But I think children sense our hesitancy and our concern and our worries, and kind of that unnerves them.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So kind of holding your sort of centre and thinking, yep, I'm coming to you. You'll be there for them. And then, of course, there's the old mummy dates, daddy dates. Sometimes the child one of the kids just needs some time with you out on their own, and they see it on the calendar and they get excited that it's coming up.
Yeah, we had a daddy date with my daughter, and it was good. It was good. She really looked forward to it, and we did it. And the whole time she was like, "It's the best Sana daddy day ever." She calls herself Sana, and it was really, really great.
Gorgeous.
And I had another one with him. So we're starting to do that more, which is really fun. Yeah.
All right, Josh, one more question. What's the one piece of dad wisdom that you give to your friends, especially if they've just started on the journey of parenthood?
I think one thing to be really mindful is that there's so much stuff out there. You're so ready, the government and everybody gets you for the birth, and then as soon as you've got a baby in your hands, then everything kind of disappears, and then from then on you are kind of targeted and hit with a wall of social media. You should be feeding your kids this, you should be exercising like this, you should have this clothes, you should have this blanket. There's so much stuff out there. Just to take it easy on yourself, because there's just a lot, and they're all trying to make money off you. So there's so much advice. I mean, hard to say, but whatever works for you works. As long as you're safe and the child is safe, then you should take it easy on yourself.
I really enjoyed that. I think all the laughs probably gave that away. I love that we got you, Jenny, talking about poo within the first couple of minutes. And that you had a poo story off the cuff.
Everyone has a poo story.
We need to do a competition, maybe send us your best poo story to win. I also really loved how Josh was talking about his relationship with his kids and how he feels a little bit like number two sometimes. Sounds like we're going back to poo talk. But I just thought that's so relatable. And I thought about my husband and how quite often, because I'm with the kids the most, they come to me. And what my husband started to do is when my daughter will be like, no, not you, Dad. He's got this thing they've created that he becomes a gorilla and he starts going, That's the worst gorilla ever. And then she starts doing it and he wins her over. And I just love this idea of he's like pursuing. He's not like walking away going, well, I'm not the favorite, but he's actually pursuing her. And I thought it was really cool how Josh was like, I'm making a bridge. I'm going to take this physical contact as affection and knowing it's going to change as they get older.
Yeah, the beauty in that was the playfulness and the lack of offence. And I think it's so easy to get offended as a parent and hurt. But children actually need us to be a bit wiser and a bit bigger than that. And if it's not working one way, try another door. And playfulness is nearly always going to win a child's heart, because deep down a child wants to connect to both parents, to auntie, to uncle, to grandma, but they'll often need us to morph into something that they can reach out to and feel in their laughter. They've sort of disarmed a little bit and can connect. So, yeah, well done.
I think too sometimes it's the gold in going on holidays is all of a sudden you're on the same playing field. And we do find at the end of a holiday, the kids are coming to us both equally. And it's something my husband grieves going back to work because he's like, oh, I'm going to be number two now. But for these last 2 weeks, we've been both of us have been the go-to.
And I think that parents will find that children change their preference as well. So, both parents are probably going to have to get used to being in the freezer for a while.
Oh, kids can put you there. They can be so harsh with their words sometimes as well. I thought it was really brave and just so amazing that Liz and Josh have been so open about their journey to having kids, and just even how he shared when he was sharing through work about what they've gone with these miscarriages and how all of a sudden 9 other guys put their hands up and like, we're going through that right now too. And maybe even if Josh didn't feel like he needed to share it, because he did, it opened the door for so many other people that maybe did need to share it and needed someone to talk to.
Yeah, it's a very beautiful gift to give others. We find it hard to talk about stuff, but probably as we share the hard things, we are connecting with others who think, thank goodness I'm in community. There are others out there. And so you are giving people permission to feel and to talk about it and not to sort of hide it away. So it was actually a real gift he was giving to step out like that and talk about it. And I think that, we all need that. I love too in the whole grief thing that we're reminded that children just come out with childish sort of phrases. Something's hard's happened, like they've lost Nana, or it could be the cat, or it could be someone else very close to them. And what do they want to also know? They want to know if you're still having, games night on Friday night, or fish and chips, or who's picking them up from school. And I think just knowing that helps us not feel offended, or just know that children will naturally just speak out. Is this going to happen? Can I be sure of these predictables? Is there some control in my world left where I've lost control of something that I once could guarantee was going to happen, or somebody was going to be there? Now they're not. So don't be surprised if children look for some certainties as well.
I remember when my dad passed and all the grief that I was going through, and my son saying, who's going to give me presents now? And I'm so glad that I took a moment and didn't get hurt or offended by that, because, presents in that moment aren't important. But then I thought my dad loved building Duplo with my boy, and that was their thing. And my dad, he had the catalogue and he was one by one buying bits, for birthdays and Christmas. So it was a real loss of connection. It wasn't just about the gift. It was that was what me and Granddad did.
Yep.
Thank you so much for tuning into this podcast project of ours. We are loving putting it together for you. Now, we are all about supporting parents on their parenting journey. So if you'd like access to more resources, head over to our website, parentingplace.nz. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook. And if you're enjoying what we're doing here, we'd love if you could share it on social media or rate and review it on this app.
Rover. Music, radio, podcasts.